In this video, I show you how to create this speed zoom effect. Hello amigos, this is Pablo Garcia, the engineer photographer. A couple of videos ago, I showed you how to add motion blur to the images, and I'll put the link to the video above. And here we have this image I did in that episode of Northern Carrier, where I wanted to add a little sense of motion. And this is the resulting image where we blur the background with motion to give it a sense of speed. But now I have this other image, that I took right next to the Rio Grande with the Sandia Mountains with snow in the background. And I have these 4 geese coming in my direction. So the motion blur filter wasn't giving me the effect that I want because the motion of the geese is towards me, not across. But I was able to use a different filter and result with this image. So this image is more what I had in mind. You know, it kind of zooms in with motion towards the geese. So I'm going to show you in Photoshop how to do this. Let's go to Photoshop. So here we are in Photoshop, and the technique is very similar to the one that I showed you in the video that I just mentioned. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to duplicate the background layer, Control J, and create a copy. The next step is I want to create a version of this image that doesn't have the geese. I just want plain mountain trees, and then I'm going to apply the zoom to that so that the birds don't get on the way. To do that, what I'm going to do is I need to select the birds. Now I can use the magic wand tool, or if I use the quick selection tool, I can go to select subject. And this time I don't need a very precise selection. It did a very good job. I'm gonna grow the selection. So go to select, modify, expand, and grow it by something like 20-25 pixels. And the selection now, as you can see, is well around the birds. Next step is I need to erase the birds. And to do that, I'm gonna go under Edit, Content Aware Fill. And the technology behind Content Aware Fill is truly amazing. Content Aware Fill, and Content Aware Fill evaluates the area of the photo that you painted in green to look for inspiration on how to recreate pixels for the areas that we want to fill in. So in this case, it did a very good job selecting the mountains and some of the clouds. That selection looks pretty good. Here on the right, on output settings, it tells you if you want on the current layer, on a new layer, on a duplicate layer. In this case, I'm just gonna do it on the current layer. I don't want to create a new layer. Current layer is fine, and I'm gonna do OK. As you can see, it did a very good job. Now I'm gonna deselect. So it did a very good job in filling in and giving us a very smooth background, just with the mountains. We didn't even know that the birds were there. Now we need to apply the zoom effect. I recommend that at this time you take that layer that we just modified and let's make it a smart object. So with the right button, we select convert to smart object, because we're going to have to come to it over and over again to make adjustments, and it's better to have it as a smart object. So now that we have a smart object, let's apply the filter. We go to filter, blur, and we have a number of options. The one that we used last time was motion blur. This time we're going to use radial blur. We have a few options. One is the amount. You can play with it. For me, something around 30-40 points seem to work okay. Next one is the blur method, is spin, go around, or zoom to go in. So we're going to use zoom. Quality mode. While we play with it, I recommend you pick draft. It makes the calculations go faster. Pick draft because unfortunately this filter doesn't give us a preview. Pick draft, things will be easier to see. And then final option that we have is where do we place the center of the blur. For now, let's leave it there in the center. And I'm gonna say okay. It's doing the calculation, and as you can see, it gave us that zoom effect going towards the center of the image. It seemed to be the appropriate amount. I may go a little bit higher, but I also need to place the center more towards where the birds were. This time I need to bring the birds back. To do that, I'm going to turn off this current layer and select the original background layer. Still using my quick selection tool, I'm going to select subject again. And it did a very good job. It's not perfect. You can take the time to update and improve the mask. So let's do that quickly. So we'll select mask. I had already in view mode, I had selected overlay with red to make it easier to see. And you can see a few blue areas between the wings or the legs of the bird. You can use the refine edge brush here on the left. And now with that brush, I'm just gonna paint a bit in a few of the blue areas that I see. And the tool is doing a great job in refining those edges. You can take your time. And overall, I think we have now a very nice selection. On the bottom right, we have a few output options. We can just do the selection, or we can create new layers. For now, I'm just gonna leave it as selection. So I'm gonna select OK. I have the selection. Now I'm gonna turn on and select the layer that we had modified. And I want to create an inverse layer based on the selection that we just made. So I press the Alt key and select mask, and now I created a mask into that smart object, and now the birds are back. Now we need to refine the effect that we want. So maybe I want to provide a little more stretch, and I want to take the center and move it in the direction of the bird, something around this point. So I go select my radial blur, double click, opens up again. That's the beauty of being a smart object. I'm going to increase it something like 40 points. And now I'm going to take the center and move it. It calculates. Oh, you did a very good job. You know, the center is more towards the birds. Maybe I need to move it a little bit more. So I'm going to try that again. Get double click on radial blur. Move it to a little bit. And now this time, if you feel you're close to what you want, you can select the quality to best, but it's gonna take a while to compute. Now it's calculating. Let's just wait and I'll be back to you when it's done. Well, here it is. I'm back in my computer. It took almost close to a minute to compute. That's why it's better to work in draft mode and then switch to quality best when you're almost ready for the final view. Here is the effect that we ended up with. Here is the original image that had the mountains and the trees and needed a sense of speed. And here is the effect. Almost like we're turning the zoom of the lens and going towards the birds. I really end up liking this effect. Once we save this image, you know, we can go back to Lightroom and you can do any final touches that you may like to do. I hope you like this effect. And if you're liking these videos, please subscribe to the channel, give me a like, tell a friend about this channel, help me grow the channel, and I'll see you next time.